with, and then ask for the seller to pay back some of those closing costs, 1 to up to 3% of the purchase price you can request to have the seller pay. And really that's just to keep you a little more liquid at the end of the day and essentially roll the closing costs into the loan. So what goes into the housing payment? Things that you're going to want to take into account when you're comparing your current rent versus the mortgage payment. You're going to have your principal and interest, obviously. Mortgage insurance, if you put down less than 20%. And then, taxes, HOA dues are going to vary depending on where you're looking, what type of property. I've seen HOA dues $100. Some of the high rises, right over here, basically, the sky's the limit, $1,300, $1,400 and above. So everybody's situation is going to be different. We're going to break out the monthly payment, give you an accurate idea of what things look like on that cash to close worksheet. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're and then the biggest question that I get is, what is my interest rate? And so lenders, like myself, we cannot be paid, legally we can't be paid on the terms of the loan. So we can't be paid on things like what type of financing you get, whether it's an adjustable rate mortgage or a fixed rate mortgage. We can't be paid based on things like the interest rate or third-party costs. So it's in my best interest to get you guys the lowest rate possible, because I want to serve my clients, but also because I want you to tell your friends, family, your coworker, hey, Chris got me this great rate, and he also followed through with great service. So the interest rate will be determined by these things. There's going to be things like your credit score, your down payment, property type. Basically, what will happen is when we get to you guys going under contract, we will punch in all of the particulars for your situation to what I call like your Expedia for home loans. And it spits out interest rates from the 14 different lenders that we work with. And at that point, we can lock in whoever's got the best interest rate at that time. So the interest rate is probably the easiest thing that lenders do. I mean, anybody who's licensed can get an interest rate for you, and we can't be paid based on the terms of the mortgage. So that's the easy part. The tough part where you hear the horror stories where you hear people, not closing or running into major issues is when you go from that point to closing. So we're going to take care of it after we lock in a great interest rate. When our parents were walking uphill to school, both ways in the snow back in the 80s, interest rates were 14, 15, 16%. Things have obviously come down a good deal from there. And interest rates are very favorable right now. They're not at maybe the lows that they've been over the last couple of years, but historically, 30-year fixed interest rate is a little bit above 6%, so it's a great interest rate environment there. Now, I want it to be the right time for you guys to buy. Don't buy because interest rates are low. Buy because you're going to be there for the next 3, 5+ years. But to give you an idea of where rates have been, where they kind of are currently, this was at the end of February. But basically, the 30-year fixed right around 4.5%, 15-year fixed. If you want a lower interest rate, I would tell you to go with a 15-year fixed mortgage because you're going to get the lowest interest rate. You're going to pay as little interest to the lender as possible. Or you could look at a 5-1 arm, 7-1 arm, or something like that, where it's an adjustable rate mortgage. It's only fixed for a certain period of time, whether it's 5 years, 7 years, or even 10 years. And since it's only fixed for that portion of the 30-year period, you're going to get a better interest rate. So these products aren't going to be the best for everybody, but if you're planning on being out of the property within that time frame, why not pay less interest to the bank? And the reason I put this up here is just really to give you guys options and make sure that you have options once you go under contract, and we're going to walk you through those. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Melanie. Thanks for staying awake, guys. I'll be around for questions at the end.
Okay, back to the fun stuff.
Yeah, back to the fun stuff.
All right, so what is an agent? Our job is to represent buyers and sellers, but either one or the other. So the buyer's agent's job is to get the buyer the lowest price and the best terms possible. Seller's agent's job is to get the seller the highest price and the best terms possible. So automatically there's this like awkward tension between the two parties because one's trying to get the price up, one's trying to get the price down. And there's usually some sort of meeting point, and it's the role of the agents to figure out what that meeting of the minds is going to be. So that's kind of basically why you have agents, because there's a lot of emotion there, there's a lot of tension and back and forth, and the agents are kind of the mediators that bring the whole deal together. We follow the law of agency, which says that above all else, our fiduciary responsibility is to protect the client. And what that means is that I am not representing the seller, I'm not representing my company, I'm not working for your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister. I am solely representing the person's name that's going to be signing my contract. So that's the law of agency. It just kind of says that I'm in your corner regardless. Last point on here is that we only make a commission when the deal closes. And a lot of people will take that and they'll be like, oh, that makes me nervous. Isn't my agent just going to push me to buy the first place I see so that they can get paid sooner? And I will tell you that that is true for like 1 in every 1,000 real estate agents. The majority of us really do have the long-term business in mind. We understand that it takes time, it takes many showings and open houses for somebody to really feel comfortable making an offer on a place. And waiting game. We want you to close on this place and then go scream our name from the mountaintops. We want you to tell our friends, your family, your coworkers, everyone you know about your really, really great realtor. And you're definitely not going to do that if you feel like you've been pushed at all during the transaction. So really important, but your agent is not going to push you. Okay, so a couple of reasons to even work with an agent. First one is that it's free for buyers. This is super nice. It's not free in every state, but in Illinois, our commission is paid solely by the seller. So what happens is the seller will pay his agent will pay the buyer's agent, and then both agents will split a little bit of the commissions with their brokerages. So ultimately the money gets cut 4 times total, but it never comes out of the buyer's pocket, which is really, really nice. Secondly, we have access to listings. So the way we do that is through MLS, multiple listing service, and that's what you're going to see on Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, Realtor.com. All of these third-party sites are just pulling data straight from the MLS. So if you see it on Redfin, it started on the MLS first. There's a delay for some sites, so you might not see something on Zillow until 24 to 48 hours after it's posted on the MLS, and by that point, in a hot market, it's probably been shown or has an offer on it or something of the sort. So when you're really in the serious house hunting phase, it behooves you to be on the MLS so that you're getting the listing straight to you and they're coming straight from the source. Second on here is Top Agent Network. So TAN is basically an off-market MLS. It's an email listserv, and it's only for the top 10% of agents in Chicago. So it's like a mini, more exclusive MLS just for properties that are off-market or are going to be on the market, but are being pre-marketed before they go on the MLS. So it's a really great tool to use if you're shopping around for agents. Make sure your agent's on TAN because you really, really want that extra edge of being able to get something off market before it goes out to the public. Third on here is support, and this is emotional support. You want your agent to be able to console you because there are so many ups and downs in the process. It's a really long, ordeal, and you just want to make sure that whoever you're working with can uplift you, but also give you real, tangible next steps when it feels like the deal is falling apart. So super important. And along those same lines, you also want a really fierce negotiator. It's the best when you can find someone that's kind of nice and kind when they're dealing with the buyer and when they're client facing, but can be a bit of a shark when it is dealing with other realtors. So definitely look out for that kind of personality because ultimately the whole reason you're employing an agent is to get you a great deal. This is my personal inspiration. Okay, so now for the next 2 slides, I'm going to bring up my buyer's agent. She's wonderful. Her name is Courtney. She's originally from Michigan and lives in Wicker Park. She's also a Condo banker agent. She's also on Top Agent Network, and she is actually a CPA. So she's great with numbers. She can run comps like nobody's business, and she's super, super knowledgeable. So Courtney is going to go through the search process with you. Okay. Hi, Courtney.
Why do you have that slide? Okay, so I'm going to take you through the search process and try and keep it high level. So after you get your pre-approval letter from Chris, then you and I are going to have an initial consultation So this is just us meeting or talking on the phone and going over the bed bath count, your budget, which neighborhood, all that good stuff. So then once I get that information, I go back to my computer, I input that into the MLS, which Melanie just touched on, and then you will automatically be sent listings via email. So then I will also be scouring TAM because I'll get those emails. So if I see anything and like I'll know your criteria, then I'm like, oh, this is perfect for Fred. I'll forward it to you. So then after I send you a bunch of listings, it'll be a little overwhelming at first. It's your job to sift through all those and pick out the ones that you like and that you actually want to see in person. So then once we get a good list going, I'm going to set up private showings. So I'm showing you what these are, but essentially it's to get us inside of the condo and to make sure the pictures are as good in real life. And then another way to see a lot of places in a short amount of time is to go to open houses. So I'm sure you know what these are too, but Saturdays and Sundays, they just open up the place for a few hours and you don't have to go with an agent. And if it's a really good open house, you might even get a treat. So then after going through all these, we're going to find we do that, I'll take a step back and I'll put together the comps that Melanie just talked about. So this is a comparative, so it's my way of guiding you to the fair market value of the property. So I'll look at similar units in the building, in the neighborhood, and give you a good range because you don't want to go in too high, you don't want to go in too low. And at the end of the day, it's your decision what you want to make for your price. And then the other things we have to decide on for the offer is the closing date, and that's the day you get the keys. And then the earnest money deposit. So kind of to simplify something that's a little complicated down, it's a prepayment to your down payment. So it's all going towards the purchase price of the condo. So once we have all those three things settled on, I will put the contract together. I'll send it to you. You'll sign it electronically. It's really easy. And then I'll send a package to the listing agent with the offer, an updated pre-approval from Chris. And then another unconventional thing that Melanie and I have our buyers do is write a personal note to the seller. And it's simple, but you just write a little bit about who you are, why you love your place, why you see yourself living there. And it sounds small, but it can actually make a really big difference when there's multiple offers. So then now's that time that Melanie touched on. That's that awkward tension where we're negotiating back and forth. But then eventually we come to an meeting of the minds. You're under contract. So I'm going to have Melanie take you to the closing table.
Yay. Okay, final stretch. This is like the last slide, I promise. Okay, so you're under contract finally. You're so excited. There's a couple things that are going to happen right away. So first, you're going to hire a home inspector. This is your only out-of-pocket expense for the entire transaction. So you'll bring in this dude, he'll come to the condo, he'll inspect it from top to bottom and make sure that it's safe for you to be living in. So they're going to be looking for, do the appliances work? Do the mechanicals work? Is there mold? Is there moisture? Is there dead bodies? Is there anything in this condo that could potentially be harmful to you as a buyer? So after that, he's going to whip up an inspection report and he will send it to you. And you'll have a chance to pick and choose a couple items that are really, really important to you that you want to then negotiate with the seller. So the way that works is you could either get credit from the seller, you could have the seller fix a couple items. Basically, it's kind of either or, but there's always a limit to it. But as a buyer, you definitely have the right to ask for anything. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to hire a real estate attorney. This person is paid at closing. So if you don't close, you don't pay the person. And the cost, I estimate $700, but you could get one for anywhere from like $600 to $1,000 and beyond. So it's a wide range, but it's worth the money because the real estate attorney ends up being like a really, really key part of the transaction from here on out. They're going to review the inspection report with you, and they're also going to review everything to do with the homeowners association. So this is a biggie because when you're buying a condo, you're not only just buying that one little piece of land, you're also buying into this homeowners association. So you want to make sure that that HOA is financially sound, that they're not going to charge any big projects in the next couple of months that might affect you. You just want to make sure there's really nothing fishy or concerning with that HOA. So the attorney's going to review all of the documents that will come straight from the HOA, and then you'll have a chance to review that too. And by the end of this time frame, you're going to be 100% certain that you want this place. So the inspection and the attorney period, that's really just your due diligence time, and that lasts about a week. And during that week, you can pull out of the deal at any time. But once you get to the end of that week and the inspector signed off on it, the attorney signed off on it, and you've had a chance to now sleep on it for like 7 nights, you are going to be beyond a shadow of a doubt sure that you want to move forward on this home. And that's when you turn in your bigger chunk of earnest money, and that money is then non-refundable. So then, once you're at that point, you really just start working with Chris on the loan side of things. And once the loan is ready, you can schedule the closing. The day of closing, we're going to go back to the condo one more time, and it's you and me, and we're going to go to the final walkthrough. So final walkthrough is basically just a chance to walk through, make sure that the seller moved all of the stuff out, make sure that everything is still working, and make sure that if they were going to fix anything, that they did indeed fix it. So walkthrough takes 10 minutes. We finish up, we get in my car, we drive downtown, we go to closing. Closing is somewhere around the loop always. Exciting for 20 times. So it's a lot of build up to this one little event, but the exciting part about it is at the end you get keys, and it's the final crescendo, and it's kind of that moment that I was talking about in the beginning when you really just step back and be excited and move on to that next chapter. So that's the whole process from top to bottom. And it, again, was super high level. So if you have questions, we're definitely going to take those. But before I get to that, I want to point out how you can reach Chris and I. So both of our emails are up there if you want. And I personally love Instagram a lot. There, get a glimpse of life in real estate Chicago, super fun. And Chris also revamped his Instagram in the past year, so he's all over it.
Baby pictures and mortgage information.
Yeah, it's a great combo. Yeah, and we also teach this class for the public. We're teaching it tonight at WeWork Kinsey at 6 p.m. It's free. There's beer. It's super chill. So if anyone is interested in a refresher course, though I don't know why you would want to listen to it now and then again at 6 o'clock. That would be too much. But if you know anyone that might benefit from it, feel free to send them over. And with that, we'll do, how much time do we have?
3 hours of questions.
Yeah, like 15 minutes.
Oh,
Okay. We'll take a couple questions, whoever's got them.
So you mentioned that the PMI is calculated either by equity or what you said, like you pay if it's less than 20%, you pay the PMI.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens if there's changes in the property value? Like let's say it goes up and then you're above that 20% threshold. Do you still continue to pay PMI, or like what happens there?
Great question. So a lot of lenders will gloss over this, but the down and dirty is basically the PMI is on there until you can show 20% equity, or until you get to 78% from paying down the mortgage per the amortization schedule. So the time frame it takes you to get paid down. If property values go up, or if you pay your mortgage down, you can request to have that removed with the servicer. Typically they'll ask for a written request and a property valuation appraisal. So $200 to $400 for an appraisal, and then they come out and say, hey, yes, you have 20% equity.
And does it have to go through specific appraisers, or can I hire any appraiser that I want?
I would always tell people check with the servicer because they'll have people on their approved, list.
Okay.
There aren't a ton of appraisers in Illinois, but yeah, you got to go through somebody with the servicer.
Okay. So I do got a second question.
Sure.
So you mentioned the competitive market analysis. So like let's say you put less than 20% of the purchase price, but then the market analysis says that it's worth more. Could you use that as a bargaining chip in terms of not paying the PMI?
Good question. So the PMI is going to be based off of the lower of your contract price or the appraised value of the property. So when you go through the loan process, you're going to get an actual appraisal from the lender. And if the appraisal comes in at or above the contract price, great. But if it comes in higher, they're still going to base the PMI factor off of the contract.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
So you mentioned closing costs 2%. The range that you usually see is like 2 to 5. So what I guess would be responsible for pushing it higher?
So the question was, sometimes you see higher estimates for closing costs up to 5%. The thing with closing costs is the majority of them are going to be fixed regardless of purchase price. The transfer tax stamps, that $7.50 per $1,000 is going to track your purchase price, percentage of the purchase price. But things like, underwriting fee, appraisal, title costs, those things are really going to stay the same whether you're buying for $150,000 or $600,000. So the lower you get down in your purchase price, the greater a percentage those closing costs become.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I say 2% because typically most first-time home buyers in the city are looking somewhere around $250 to $300 for a condo, and that's about where they're going to fall.
Okay.
For that.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's the general cost of getting the loan, the origination?
Great question. So different lenders will have different origination charges. Origination charges basically the charge to process and underwrite the loan. Because like I said, you won't pay me for my services, the lenders will pay me to originate the loan. We have the same flat fee with all 14 lenders, so we're not encouraged to steer somebody to one lender or another. Our origination fee is $11.95, but when you go to lock in the interest rate, your interest rate. So you can look at a lower than market interest rate that comes with a cost or discount points in addition to that origination charge, or you may have a credit coming back to cover some or all of that origination. So that's kind of the full story when it comes to that side.
If you're shopping lenders, at what point do all those credit pulls come back to hurt your score? Or is it too minimal of an effect? If you keep getting those credit pulls from Chase, Bank of America, you guys, like this
the CFPB doesn't want to penalize people for shopping for their loan. So if you have your credit pulled by multiple mortgage lenders within a 45-day window, it all counts as one pull. We work with a bunch of different big banks, so we can shop the rate with Wells Fargo, US Bank, Everbank, a whole bunch of different big banks. But if you want to have it run by multiple people, it's not going to hurt. I would say to try to limit that, because then you're going to have, especially with big banks and all lenders, people calling you and you opened up the seventh circle file into your phone. So I would kind of take a couple people to stick with.
Yeah. So say you're looking to save money for your 20% like down payment or whatever number you choose. Are there any tax favorable ways of doing that if you're a first time home buyer?
To save for it, you're saying?
Yeah. So say instead of investing my money month over month in my 401k or an IRA or whatever, I'm just kind of stashing it in a savings account. Is there a better way to do that, a more favorable way?
No, I mean, I usually just see people either invest it, take it out of their mutual funds or stock account, savings account, or sometimes people will do loans against their 401k for down payment. The only downside with that is that then you're paying taxes on what you put back in. I mean, you get to pay yourself back the loan, but you pay taxes essentially twice on that. So, no, I mean, really people just kind of sock it away in a savings account, a financial account. Maybe talk to a financial planner if they've got any better ways, but that's typically nice. Yes, sir.
I actually froze my credit because of the whole Experian thing. So
Good,
I want to know what window of time could I freeze it again? At what point in the process am I pretty much good to go and I don't need to have it unfrozen?
Yeah, good question. I don't think enough people have frozen their credit after all that, because you guys are not buying for I'd say to freeze it for sure. But basically you can thaw it for a day, then we would pull the credit report for the pre-approval, it would go back, and we might have to thaw it again at the end when they do a soft credit check to make sure you haven't opened up any loans. But really, people just unfreeze it for a day or two to do the pre-approval and then freeze it back after that.
So a question about the pre-approval. You know how you said it's good for like 120 days? Does that include the interest rate? Because I have a pre-approval, but they said the interest rates went up. Will I still get that same rate?
You will not get that.
Oh, okay.
Your rate is floating
Okay.
until you go under contract. Floating just means it can go up or down depending on where the bond market is. There's been some huge structural changes to the bond market since December. I mean, rates are probably up about 0.5% since December.
Okay.
So yeah, I would go back and maybe periodically check in. Hey, what's the interest rate now? A lot of times I'll be able to update worksheets and say, hey, this is where things are now. But yeah, you can lock in after you go under contract and then set that rate through your closing.
Okay.
Great questions.
Anything else?
I'm kind of in the uptown, like Lakeview area, and I'm just seeing a lot of like luxury condos and apartments going up. Is there an expectation that that market's going to contract or collapse in the coming years?
The luxury market?
Yeah, just there's a lot of like luxury buildings going up. It's kind of seems crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, so I couldn't tell you what's gonna happen with the market. It could crash in 5 years, not, hopefully not. But I would just overall say all that new construction is needed. It really is. Like, it's such a thirsty market for inventory that from first time buyer condos all the way up to like luxury single family homes, that stuff, there is so much demand for it. So to me, I see it as a good thing, and I don't foresee any sort of like collapse, but you don't know what. Yeah.
What have you seen in the Chicago market where like up and because you want to invest long term?
Yeah, that was a good question. I think the most up and coming that are not like there yet might be anything west. So Humboldt Park, kind of that ambiguous West Town area that's not Wicker Park and not Bucktown, but like those other areas that are not as defined. River West, even Pilsen, if you're willing to go far south, there's a lot of action foreseen to happen out there. But yeah, as far as like what's super hot right now, for sure, that's the most expensive and the most competitive, it seems.
Do you think like a multiple bedroom, two bath will gain value faster than like a one bath, like a smaller, short studio, something like that, smaller?
People ask that all the time. I genuinely believe that there's just as many buyers out there for a one bed as there are for two bed. You know, my clients are like half and half. Some are looking for the smaller, some are looking for a much bigger. There really is a market for everything. The great thing about the two bed, two bath thing though is if you want to live there and offset your mortgage, have a roommate, or find some other way to like Airbnb out the second room, something like that. So that is kind of the big benefit of going for a bigger place, but I would never shy away from buying a one bedroom. I bought a one bedroom, so many people buy them. There's definitely a market for that. The studio, it might be cheaper to rent a studio than to buy one, but if you're looking for investment property, studio might be a great way to get your feet wet investing.
So this is kind of a specific question. My wife and I are starting to look, and we haven't really spoken to this yet or anything, but one thing that we keep encountering is like we're looking for like a 3-bedroom, but really that could be like a 2-bedroom office, right? Like, and there aren't easy ways to comb through what that is. Any advice? I mean, it'll be a lot easier when we have somebody that we're working with and know what the properties and stuff ahead of time.
Yeah.
I don't know, any advice for knowing the language or what's tracked?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because there's definitely a difference between a 2-bed plus den and a true 3-bedroom, and the 3 bedrooms are hard to find. So, I mean, I would, until you're working with someone that's on the MLS, I would just do your best to look at the room size dimensions that are listed online and use those to estimate that like anything smaller than a 10 by 10 room is probably not gonna work or something of the sort. So as much as you can with what's online, it's kind of the best I have for you.
Sure.
But it's hard when there's no one like vetting this stuff for you because then you're like, well, anything goes.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for coming. You guys are a great
Thank you,
audience.
guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, that's long.